It's now my honor to introduce Dr. Richard Brown, the Secretary General of the World Federation of Chiropractic, or WFC. The WFC has 90 countries as members of the WFC in 7 parts of the world, which is basically the world, and is dedicated to the support, empowerment, and promotion and the advancement of chiropractic. Richard has practiced over 25 years. After graduating from the Anglo-European College of Chiropractic, he went on to earn his master's in law and from Cardiff University. And today he's going to talk a little about what's going to drive unity. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Richard Brown. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for that very kind introduction, Dr. McDonald. It's great to be part of this symposium, and I'm very honored to follow both you and Dr. Arlen and Judy for, and what an amazing announcement that was. So it's a pleasure to be able to share some time with you today, talking about what I believe is our greatest global opportunity. So over the past 20 months of the COVID-19 pandemic, freedom has featured in many discussions. Amidst enforced lockdowns and travel restrictions and social distancing and personal protective equipment, there have been voices of dissent and objections to the curtailment of our freedom and liberty. Now, in 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt spoke of 4 freedoms: freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. These are freedoms that we often take for granted, but at a time when on our TV screens and in our newspapers, we observe parts of the world where liberties are being replaced by the harshest of regimes, our attention is focused again on what we mean by freedom. Now today, September 17, marks the anniversary of the day back in 1787 that the US Constitution was signed in Philadelphia. It was explicitly designed to strike a balance between authority and liberty. A civilized society must of necessity be governed by rules and boundaries, because without law, anarchy reigns. But I would argue that freedom is not about the right to do as we please, but about the opportunity to do what is right. Now, being a licensed healthcare professional permits us certain freedoms, but it should not be a free-for-all. So today I'm going to focus on what I believe is our greatest global opportunity. Now, COVID-19 has transformed our lives in numerous ways. There are few, if any of us, who have not been touched by some form of tragedy, the loss of a loved one, friend, or a colleague. Disruption to our lives caused by lockdown restrictions, being deprived by the loss of contact with friends and family, felt all the more acutely by members of a profession whose lives and work is founded on human touch. Our work as chiropractors has been impacted at times by closures and dramatic modifications to our daily lives. And for many of us, we have spent the last 20 months living our lives through Zoom and Teams. But I don't want this presentation to be a platform for regret, either as individuals or as a profession. COVID-19 has demonstrated qualities that have been evident throughout our now 126 years of existence. Throughout the world, chiropractors have again demonstrated that when they're up against it, when they're faced with adversity, they can, time and time again, demonstrate strength in the face of adversity. When chiropractors have faced persecution, they have triumphed. When they've faced discrimination, they have remained proud. When they stood before the might of the establishment, they have remained strong. During the period of the pandemic, the chiropractic profession has shown amazing resilience and fortitude. I've witnessed the profession pivot to a new way of working, whether in chiropractic education or in offices and clinics. Chiropractors have embraced online education, telehealth, remote examinations, and virtual care. What we once thought not possible has become a reality. The development of the vaccine has eventually shown us a light at the end of what has been a dark tunnel. The global rollout will take time. It's been undertaken quicker in some regions than in others, but it must be seen as a feat of science after an unprecedented period in our history. We have now the key that will at last release us from the shackles of COVID-19. At last, we are seeing the green shoots of hope, hope of a return to normality, of social contact, not social distancing, hope of renewal, hope of family gatherings, holidays, concerts and parties, hope of hugging a friend and holding the hand of a loved one, hope of rolling up our sleeves, seizing new opportunities and getting back to work in a new normal. Are we ready? You bet we are. Now, Thomas Edison was a man who knew all about opportunities. He was born into a family of 7 siblings. His father was an exiled activist from Canada, and his mother was a school teacher. Growing up in the 1830s in Michigan was tough, and the family struggled to make ends meet. Now, young Thomas was a challenge. As a child, he contracted scarlet fever and had numerous ear infections that meant he was almost deaf. He was hyperactive and only completed 12 weeks at a public school before being labelled difficult, leaving to be homeschooled by his mother. Age 12, he started selling newspapers on the Grand Trunk Railroad, subsequently starting his own small newspaper and selling it from carriage to carriage. After saving a 3-year-old child on the railway line, a grateful father taught him how to operate a telegraph, and this stimulated an interest in electrical science. The rest is history. Thomas Edison became one of the most prolific inventors in history. Best known for inventing the incandescent light bulb, he patented almost 1,100 inventions, including the phonograph and the motion picture. He competed with Nikola Tesla in the AC-DC battle of the currents and established the first research laboratory. Why am I talking about Thomas Edison? Well, the secret of Edison's success is that he saw needs and capitalized on opportunities. It is said that he invented the light bulb after countless attempts, denying that he ever failed, just that he had found 10,000 ways that his product didn't quite work. He also famously said this, that opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. I'm here to tell you that as chiropractors, you have the most amazing opportunities. You have chosen a career less ordinary, something different, and you've gifted yourselves the chance to be amazingly successful doing something you love. You have chosen a career being a specialist in the #1 cause of years lived with disability on the planet. You have chosen a career where you are in control of your destiny. You can have a rich and varied general practice, or you can choose a specialism that fascinates and inspires you, such as neurology or pediatrics or sport. You are in a profession that is anything but mediocre, and the only limitation is your imagination of what you want it to be. In spinal and joint pain and disability, there is an enormous global need. In almost every country, on every continent, low back dominates the global burden of disease charts. With people living longer, the problem is getting bigger. We know from Danish research that children get back pain too. Chiropractic is part of the solution. As chiropractors, we are key players in creating happier, healthier, and more active communities. Wherever you are in the world, You can be the difference that makes the difference. At the WFC, we believe that every chiropractor can be epic. We launched our Be Epic campaign back in 2017, and since then, it's spread to each of our 7 world regions. Our epic pillars are foundational to what we advocate, and you'll see them described on our mobile app, on our website, and within our 20 principles. So what is epic? It's evidence-based, people-centered, interprofessional, and collaborative care. We think these are the indispensable elements of succeeding as a chiropractor and serving your communities. In short, epic is our greatest global opportunity. Whether you're in Africa or Asia or Europe, in the Eastern Mediterranean, Latin American, North American or Pacific regions, being epic as a chiropractor marks you as a contemporary health professional and someone who is committed to delivering high quality care. So let's take a look at the pieces of epic and see how they fit together. The E of epic stands for evidence-based practice. A few years ago, I had the opportunity of speaking on the subject of evidence-based practice at Oxford University. It is the oldest centre of learning in the English-speaking world and dates back to 1086. For those of you who are Harry Potter fans, the dining halls at Oxford are just like the films, and every building is majestic and magical. I was speaking primarily to an audience of chiropractors, and you can imagine how eyebrows were raised when I informed them that my education was BS. There were shocked faces when I told them at the time that physiotherapy education was BS, and there were looks of horror when I told them, heaven forbid, that medical education was then BS. What was I talking about? Had I completely lost my marbles? Well, I quickly explained that back in the days of my education, we were in the period before Sackett. David Sackett, a Canadian physician and epidemiologist, is known as the godfather of evidence-based medicine. Back in 1986, David Sackett was the primary author of a paper published in the British Medical Journal that rocked the medical world. The paper, which was entitled Evidence-Based Medicine, What It Is and What It Isn't, emphasized 3 components, which are often referred to as the 3-legged stool of evidence-based practice. Evidence-based practice is defined as the conscientious, explicit, and judicious use of current best evidence in making decisions about the care of individual patients. So it means integrating individual clinical expertise with the best available scientific evidence from systematic research. So what does this look like? Well, as we progress through our careers as chiropractors, we gain more experience and we develop more expertise. We also gain a better idea how to manage patients. We become more proficient and we can exercise better judgment. I call this the clever, smart, wise continuum. We hopefully see that this increased expertise and experience means that we are able to diagnose more effectively and efficiently. But importantly, it's also about the thoughtful identification and compassionate use of patients' individual predicaments, rights and preferences when we make clinical decisions about their care. But in evidence-based practice, the critical 3rd leg of the stool is, unsurprisingly, evidence. Does evidence mean any evidence? No, it's the best available external evidence, preferably from systematic reviews that pool the combined data from many different studies using many subjects. These studies generally take the form of patient-centered, clinically relevant investigations that look into the accuracy and precision of diagnostic tests, the power of prognostic markers, and the efficacy and safety of therapeutic, rehabilitative, and preventative measures. This is, of course, a dynamic process. Tens of thousands of new papers are published every week. some of which confirm our previous findings, but others which change our understanding of the best ways to manage and prevent conditions. Cherry picking our own evidence to suit our own biases doesn't work either. We've all come across those who carefully select the evidence that suits their opinions and ignore inconvenient truths, or they continue to promote old evidence and beliefs and overlook new evidence that sometimes debunks old theories, or they quote evidence from case studies and ignore higher quality evidence. But it's no good to rely solely on clinical experience or on external evidence. It has to be a synthesis of the two. If you don't use clinical expertise or experience, healthcare risks being tyrannized by evidence. Even the best evidence may not be applicable to a patient in front of you. However, a failure to consider the evidence, especially new and emerging evidence, means that clinical practice can become outdated, which is also not in the best interest of patients. Now, one of the biggest challenges facing the chiropractic profession has been around the area of unsubstantiated claims about the benefits of chiropractic and the exaggeration of findings from the scientific literature. This has resulted in adverse publicity for chiropractic, and actions have been taken by advertising and professional conduct regulators around the world. And skeptics trawling the websites of chiropractors regularly highlight claims made about the beneficial effects of the spinal adjustment, particularly for non-musculoskeletal conditions. And while we know that there are many examples of case studies reporting observed improvements in general health status following chiropractic treatment, such studies, in the absence of high quality research, are insufficient to make claims publicly. More evidence is needed for what we do. We need to invest in greater research. So before it's available, we just need to be a bit cautious about what it is that we claim. But the volume of excellent evidence supporting what we do as chiropractors is growing all the time. Perhaps the most seminal papers to emerge in the past few years are the Lancet Low Back Pain papers. When they were published in 2018, they generated huge global interest. For example, there were 126 million tweets that were generated as a result. Chiropractors were involved in the authorship, with one, Professor Jan Hartwigsen, being the principal author of one of the papers. They're openly accessible and advocate non-drug, non-surgical care for most episodes of back pain. And while we know that it's not just back and neck pain that chiropractors treat, this evidence supports our work as chiropractors. If you want to find more papers relevant to our work, then visit the WFC's suggested reading list that can be found on our website at wfc.org. Also, it's worth checking out the work being done by knowledge transfer experts, such as Carol Scanciliere, who heads up the Canadian Chiropractic Guideline Initiative, and Sean Thistle, who runs RRS Education. These guys read all of the literature so we don't have to, and translate it into clinically meaningful summaries that we can use. RRS offers an amazing service, and it supports chiropractors around the world. So I would recommend that you check them out. The P of EPIC is people-centered care, our unrelenting duty to put people at the very heart of all we do as chiropractors. Winston Churchill famously said, "You make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give." Now, when we were putting our EPIC campaign together, we consulted a range of stakeholders. One of these was the World Health Organization. The WFC has been a non-state actor in official relations with WHO since 1997, which means we have unbelievable access to the world's experts in global public health. They looked at our campaign, and they explained that by restricting ourselves to patient-centered care, we overlook the role of chiropractors as primary healthcare professionals with the ability to positively influence communities and populations in spinal and MSK health. The people at WHO were, of course, absolutely right. Being people-centered, of course, incorporates being patient-centered, listening to the patient's point of view, involving them in decisions about their care, empowering them to be in control, recognizing them as unique individuals. This is where modern spine care is at right now. Now, we also must remember that patients are savvy consumers. Like any product, they expect the product you deliver to have been rigorously tested for effectiveness. They expect it to be tailored to their specific requirements. They expect excellent customer service and a satisfactory remedy if something should go wrong. And they're not shy about leaving a bad review if they're unhappy. People-centered care matters. No longer will patients accept a cookie-cutter approach to patient care, a one-size-fits-all model that is doomed to failure. This doesn't mean that we shouldn't adopt standard operating procedures, and this is essential for all well-run chiropractic offices. But when it comes to patients, honoring them as the individual human beings they are is essential. Just stop for a moment and think about how we feel when we are made to feel special, when we're acknowledged, listened to, remembered, valued, when our doctor shows a genuine interest in our lives, our families, and our work, when our suffering is acknowledged and plans to fix us take account of our individual circumstances, when people are honest with us and readily admit it when others may have a better solution to our problems, when our backgrounds and cultures and perspectives are respected, how do we feel? Well, we feel special, we feel valued, and we feel connected. Being a doctor is not just about being clever, but being compassionate. The eye of Epic is interprofessional. One of the biggest criticisms of healthcare is that it isn't joined up. Specialities exist in vacuums. Systems of the body are treated as separate, distinct entities, devoid of connectivity. So often we hear of health professionals don't really talk to each other, and they're fiercely protective of their turf. Departments are isolated and boundaries are delineated. We often refer to this as siloed care. Now, silos are in no one's interest. They breed mistrust, protectionist behavior, and narrow-mindedness. Patients find themselves repeating their case history over and over again and undergoing repeated tests and procedures. So like a silver ball in a pinball machine, they're pinged, spun, and ricocheted around hospitals and clinics. It's no surprise that they are left dizzy and confused. Interprofessional care breaks down barriers and destroys silos. It acknowledges the critical importance of a joined-up, holistic approach that patients so desperately crave. It takes account of the fact that our amazing bodies are a magnificent amalgamation of interdependent systems. It helps us to place in context the myriad elements, contextual factors that are the influences and the promoters and barriers of how we respond to care. Until recently, history has not afforded chiropractors great opportunities to be part of these teams. The dark days of containment and elimination remain in the memories of our more senior colleagues. The jailing of chiropractors for practicing medicine without a license. The banishment into the wilderness of healthcare with threats of similar punishment meted out to any medical doctor that dared to fraternize with quacks. At the same time, we haven't always been innocent bystanders in all of this. For reasons both good and bad, chiropractors have gone it alone. They've had to carve their own path, and like true pioneers, they dared to be different. They took on the medical establishment head to head. They challenged the mantra of drugs and surgery, incurring the wrath of big pharma as they went. Some groups rubbished and indeed continue to rubbish global public health programs. But like never before, chiropractors are embracing an interprofessional approach as part of being Epic. Who would have believed that here in 2021, chiropractors would be delivering care as part of multidisciplinary teams treating forces veterans? Who would have dreamt that chiropractors would have been part of the official medical services teams of the Olympic Games? Who would have thought that chiropractors would be part of hospital-based spine care units, and in some cases, directing them? And who would have thought that chiropractors would now routinely be establishing clinics hosting the widest range of medical and allied health specialties? Interprofessional spine care conferences are popping up around the world, and chiropractors are showcasing the role that they can play in addressing the global spine crisis. Here we see leaders in spine care from multiple professions coming together, sharing best practices, recognizing commonality of purpose, acknowledging the relevance of research across professions. This is where we need to be. Isolationism is dead, and those who continue to advocate it will restrain the profession like a rusty anchor dragging across the seabed. Being part of an interprofessional team is not just for the chiropractic elite. Everyone can engage in working with other spine care and health professionals. It matters not whether you're in a large multi-doctor practice or you practice as a lone practitioner. Reaching out, corresponding with other physicians, attending meetings and building a network will raise your game and your status in the spine care world, and patients will love you for it. Our future success will be assured by breaking down barriers and by committing to doing what is right in the best interest of the patients that we serve. Even if we won't talk with students of other professions, let's seize the opportunity to learn with them at postgrad events. And let's commit to playing nicely in the sandbox. By discarding the baggage of the past, we can embrace a brighter future. By seeing what is possible, we can overcome challenges. By focusing on the needs of our societies, our communities, and our patients, we can assure our place as valued members of spine care teams within global health systems. As the saying goes, you will get everything in life that you want by helping other people get what they want. And rule 101 is to leave your ego at the door. Yes, we bring skills and expertise to the table, not least of which are the strong psychomotor skills honed from years of practice that make us superb adjusters. But when it comes to working interprofessionally, a healthy dose of humility never goes amiss. The final component of EPIC, the C, is collaborative. We have already touched on the value of chiropractors working with others. So what do we mean by collaborative when it comes to being EPIC? Well, collaborative care champions the role of chiropractors committing to positive engagement with patients, carers, and families. It's about recognizing the value of autonomy, self-direction, shared decision-making, and empowerment, and not promoting dependence on us or anyone else. It's about chiropractors as active participants in public health, collaborating in global programs, working at WHO to enable populations to enjoy healthier, happier, and more active lives. We know so much more about the management of spinal pain, disability, and health than we ever have. Let's harness this knowledge with innovation and an acknowledgement that we're all in this together. But collaboration is more than that. For us to succeed as a profession, we must collaborate with each other, our classmates, our colleagues, and even our competitors. Collaboration between researchers, academics, policymakers, politicians, and practitioners to seize the opportunities before us that will allow us to realize our collective potential. EPIC chiropractors coming together, sharing a vision, and respecting the contributions of others. Evidence-based, people-centered, interprofessional, and collaborative. Our EPIC future depends on collaborating to raise the bar. When we collaborate, we win. When we commit to EPIC, we commit to a sustainable future of hope, optimism, and service, and a building of cultural authority that will ensure a sustainable future. So together, let's make EPIC a springboard for change, engagement, and success. We have so much to celebrate and so many great people doing marvelous things for chiropractic. We have countless opportunities that our ancestors could never have imagined. We need to be bold and innovative and prepared to take our place as the spinal healthcare experts in the healthcare system. Being EPIC is our duty, our driver, and our future. Every day, chiropractors, people just like you, are going into their office and making a tremendous difference, changing lives for the better and contributing to a healthier world. The future of our wonderful profession is quite literally in our hands. Let us seize our greatest global opportunity. Let's be EPIC. Thank you.